The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, and you're in the right place for today's webinar, a case study, how a dealership group leveraged service leads to increase new car sales, sponsored by MPI and hosted by WebAttract, the leaders in informational webinars. Hi, I'm Mike Agron, the executive webinar producer with WebAttract, and I'll be your moderator and one of your hosts for today's session. And before we get started, for those of you that may not be familiar with MPI, they're a leading provider of revenue and retention solutions for automotive dealership service departments. And in just a moment, I'll be introducing our featured speakers, Jim Ziegler and Terry Longmore, along with Randy Kobat from MPI. But before we get started, let me tell you who's in the audience. We're thrilled that we have a diverse audience of over 300 professionals, such as yourself, that have registered from over 51 states and provinces from the U.S. and Canada. And here's the various industries that you represent, which you see on the screen. But regardless of your industry segment or location, we're confident that you'll find today's webinar of value. So let's get started. And I want to now launch the first poll. So the question we would like to know, since today is all about uncovering new car sales through your service department, have you tried uncovering new car sales through your service drive? Go ahead and tell us yes, no, you're considering, or you're not sure if it would work for you. And I'm now going to share the results. 81% of you have tried this, 7% haven't, 9% are considering, and 2 aren't sure if it would work. Well, hopefully at the end of this webinar, we'll give you some reasons why it will. I want to go back to the first part of our panel here and tell you a little bit about who we have and who they represent, and then I'm going to bring up Jim Ziegler. These are true auto experts, true professionals, and most of you probably know that the gentleman in the center is Jim Ziegler, who's a well-known auto sales expert of Ziegler Super Systems. He's coming on in just a moment, and then to his left is our featured case study presenter, Terry Longmore, who's the general manager of Beasley Ford Lincoln in York, Pennsylvania, and on the right is our sponsor, Randy Kobat, who's the VP of Strategic Services, who's going to come on at the end and be part of the Ask the Experts panel. So with that, let's bring on Jim. And let me tell you a little bit about Jim if you're not familiar with him, and I think you are. What he's going to do, first off, is talk about why the traditional car approach isn't working in the service drive. And he'll summarize by giving you 3 different approaches to help you identify service leads and generate sales. And as most of you know who are familiar with Jim, he's been a super performer in the automobile business. I think he's got over 34 years with some of the top dealerships in the country. I know his column, The Dealer's Advocate's read by just about every dealer and factory executive in the business. So it's great to have you here, Jim. I'm delighted to welcome you to the webinar from the state of Georgia. Jim Ziegler, how you doing?
Glad to be here, Mike. Ready to rock.
Let's go.
Okay, the first premise we'll talk about today is what you've always done in the past isn't working nearly as well as it used to. I've been in the business 37 years actually, and I got to tell you, we've seen all sorts of transitions in the way cars are retailed and marketed. But since 2008 specifically, we've seen a radical shift with the advent of technology and economics in the country, the way consumers are reacting to the car dealerships. And I'm traveling 200 days a year, speaking, consulting, working in these dealerships. And I got to tell you, I speak to literally thousands of dealers and dealership personnel. And so many people are still waiting for it to come back. Well, guess what? It's never, ever going to be the way it was. If you're waiting for it to be that way, it's never going to be that way again. And for those people, somebody has definitely moved your cheese. And in today's market, you got 2 choices. You can grow or you can die, but you cannot stay where you are. We have to find new and inventive ways to do business. Recently, Google did a study and released a theory called the 0 moment of truth. And the 0 moment of truth is all about the fact that consumers are making their decision to buy and to purchase a lot earlier in the process than they used to, and they're doing it with technology. So in effect, floor traffic is down. Today's customers are fluid, they're mobile, they're technology savvy, they're doing their research, A matter of fact, I've been to a lot of dealerships recently, and I have seen customers still in the middle of the showroom shopping on their handheld devices. So we have to understand that most dealers in the past have only had limited strategies to grow sales. Now, if you're going to do business today with a limited number of consumers in the marketplace and more manufacturers building more and more cars, I think if you totaled up all the projected units they're going to produce this year, they're going to produce probably 90 million vehicles, which the market can't absorb. So if you're going to do business, you're going to have to take that business away from a competitor that has it, from somebody else that's already got that business. In the past, the dealer strategy has been when business gets slow and you need more traffic, you advertise more aggressively. You threw more money at it. And car dealers throw more money at advertising than virtually any local business of any kind. Other than national sponsors, we are the biggest advertisers in virtually every market in the country. In 1908, John Wanamaker Department Store, says, "I know half my advertising is wasted, I just don't know which half." Well, today we have the technology to know to the decimal point how effective our marketing is. So more aggressive advertising is not necessarily going to produce more traffic. Outbound phone calls from the sales department and the BDC, that's another aggressive way that dealers have tried to grow business. But guess what? You can't beat salespeople hard enough to stay in a phone room all day. I mean, it's terrible. And of course now a lot of dealers have discovered the ultimate marketing secret, which is the big inflatable gorilla on the roof, the wavy arm guy at the entrance drive, and putting balloons on every car. But nobody, and I mean nobody, is seriously looking at your past customers and your current customers. When I wrote the book, The Prosperity Equation, a couple years back, one of the things I said is your past customers are your best and cheapest source of new business. And here most dealers have a strategy where we spend a fortune shotgunning into the aiming at strangers. People, we're advertising to these strangers, and we have no amount of retro strategy, no amount of retro money aimed backwards at the people who have already bought from us and people who are already using our service department. So retro advertising has been a theme of mine for many years. Looking back, we talk about customer relationship management in the car business, and so many of the people that I'm training today think that customer relationship management is a computer program. Well, it's actually a relationship program, and we have to understand that. Relationship selling has become a thing of the past because of high turnover in the sales departments. You know, it's amazing because we're turning over so fast that dealerships have all these orphan customers that nobody's calling on. And those customers, think back, when you were in high school, how many people were in your high school graduating class? And I'll bet you knew most of those people at the time. How many of those people do you know and associate with today? If you're like most people, you allowed those people to drift into your past and they evaporated. Well, guess what? That's what most dealerships are doing with your customers. Nobody is keeping in touch with them. They're drifting into the past, and unfortunately, they're evaporating. And that's part of what the service turn is all about. When we get into this technology, I am so impressed with it, and we're going to talk about it. But what we have to understand is sales management in your dealership is focused on working the deals in front of them. And I'm sitting in dealerships every week of my life. I still desk deals. I still do finance. I still work with real customers. And I was in a dealership 2 weeks ago, and the managers were totally absorbed in working deals, penciling deals, working the figures. But as far as developing business, sales managers, for the most part, aren't doing that. And I know a lot of dealerships have business development centers, and I love the BDC concept, but I got to tell you, when you put people in a room and they're making customer contacts, trying to make appointments, they have to have the technology in front of them to justify the consumer coming in. And one thing I know for a fact, when I was a salesperson myself, and we're going way back in the day, I got some of my best sales in the customer lounge while they were waiting for service. And most dealerships never, ever realize new business from their service department. Well, first of all, salespersons are not equipped to sell on the service drive. They're too forward. It's too abrasive a process when you approach a customer that isn't there to buy a car, and that they're not trained. They don't have the word tracks and the things they need. And service department employees, these people are not trained to sell. As a matter of fact, the personality type that makes a good service writer is a bad salesperson. We can't even get them to sell windshield wiper blades. They're never going to sell cars. So they're the personality type that I'm looking for when I'm hiring somebody for the service writing position, service advisor. That personality type is the exact antithesis of what a good salesperson. A salesperson is aggressive and friendly, amiable, affable, but the service writer is not going to sell on the service drive. It just is not going to happen. And selling on the service drive requires trust. It's not a hard close in any way. It's more of a pull marketing than a push sale. So to be able to get this done and get it done the way we need to get it done, you got to understand our service department leads superior. Let's move on to that. Well, I think if I could have a choice between a walk-in up and a service appointment, I'd take the service appointment or the service customer all day long. Number one, they're already here. I'm not trying to get them into the dealership. They're driving my product. And one thing that's really important when you think about a service customer, they are fully vetted, qualified. They have good credit most likely, and at least they have the ability to buy the car because they've demonstrated they bought cars before and are using our business. And that's important to understand. These people like our product. They're not shopping anywhere else. Matter of fact, they didn't come in even thinking they were going to buy a car. And for the most part, we already have the information we need to transact a sale in your dealer management system, your DMS. You know their equity, you know their payoff, you know the finance terms, and you even know how they negotiated their last deal if you're a negotiating dealership. You've got all the information. You know how much their car is worth. That you can make a really reasonable, intelligent pitch to these people. You know when their warranty expires or their service contract. And you know mechanically how good or how bad their trade-in is. You've got the service records. Now, one thing about the service department, the hours that it heats up are exactly opposite of the sales department. The sales department generally doesn't start to get activity till 10, 11 o'clock in the afternoon, but in the service department, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, those are the peak hours where the peak traffic is. So once again, that service lounge is going to be packed somewhere between 8 and 10. And you're the only dealer they're dealing with. And one option so many dealers miss is service customers. And one thing I want to ask, and this is kind of important, do you have the equity mining tools to look up and see what kind of equity they've got in their cars? And here's the big question. Are you missing out on 40 or 50% of the customers in your service department that probably didn't buy their car from you? Mike, I'd like to do a poll question here. What I want to ask the people is how many customers are using your service department in percentages that bought their car from another dealership? Let's see what the audience thinks. How many customers are using your service department and didn't buy their car from you?
Envelope. And let's share the results. There you go, Jim.
Okay, 50% of the audience thinks that 35% of your customers in your service department bought elsewhere. 27% think it's 50% bought elsewhere, and 8% think 70% bought elsewhere. They probably have a bad service department. 10%, no, I don't think. I would lean more toward 50% than 35% in the realities that I have seen. Now that's going to be demographic, market to market. You can't say anything is going to be blanket across the country, but somewhere between that 35 and 50% is realistic. Now think about this. People shop cars everywhere. Let's go back to our main slide. People buy cars anywhere. They shop all over town. They shop the internet, and the internet has expanded their reach. People could buy their cars virtually everywhere, but they usually service close to home or close to work. So there is your best chance of conquest business. People that either live or work close to your dealership, like your product, drive your product, are capable of financing your product, and you've got information on their vehicle in your DMS and in your service records, and getting the next sale from these people should be an easy thing to do. This is conquest business that you did not have in the past. So do we have a full solution, including technology tools for training your people? Yes, we do. And the right approach, you can't approach these people with a hard sale. It just isn't going to happen. And to me, the service drive with full technology and training-based solution, and Terry's going to talk about that in a minute, but first of all, we made 3 promises to you. We promised that we were going to talk about the strategies for leveraging service drive leads. Number 1, processes and procedures. Service turn offers process. I have always said that you don't need to be a superstar, but you need to have average people with great processes can yield incredible results. And this is a tried and true proven approach. It's organized, well-defined. So the processes are here. And today, all processes have to be backed up with a technology. Having the right information for the customer strategy is crucial. Beyond data mining, this goes much deeper. Technology serving up the right information to the right customer circumstance at the right time. Training and support. When I got in the car business 37 years ago, they threw me in a room with a bunch of Jackie Cooper tapes and said, don't come out until you're trained. And they never trained me again. You've got to have constant and ongoing reinforcement training. Every week somebody's throwing a football, even when they threw a football in a real game last week. You've got to have reinforced training and support. Service Turn offers that. Now, Mike, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Jim, thank you so much. That was fantastic. And stick around. We're going to have you back to the virtual podium. Thank you very much, Jim. All right. Well, now I want to turn to our next panelist, Terry Longmore. And I mentioned him earlier. Right now, he is currently the general manager at Beasley Ford Lincoln, and that's part of the Apple Automotive Group of York, Pennsylvania. He's got a very exciting case study with real business value and outcomes that he's going to share with us, particularly how he was able to sell 3% of the RO's new cars. Also, like Jim, Terry is a seasoned auto executive. He's got over 30 years in the business, and before his current role at Beasley, he was also the GM of the Kelly Nissan Automotive Group in Emmaus, PA. He is going to be talking about a case study from there. Terry, absolutely delighted to have you. Welcome to the webinar. And how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I really appreciate the opportunity. As you said, I'm kind of on the other side of the fence. I'm a guy that's doing it every day. I'm a guy that's watching results, a person that's been doing a long time in sales, F&I, new car manager, used car manager. So that's why I was just so thrilled when I saw this process and how easy it was going to implement.
Before we jump into the case study, is there something in particular you would like folks to get out of today from what you're going to share with them?
Well, I mean, I'm going to save you a lot of black and blue marks. I made a lot of these mistakes, and the original poll that showed 81% of the people have tried it. That doesn't surprise me. It's a tough situation. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where personnel is real important, the location. We're going to address all those things in my segment here, and you'll be able to see probably why the reason you failed. And I'm going to encourage everybody to do it again, but this time to do it with the guidance of what you're hearing today.
Terrific. Let's get started, and I'd like you to set up who the Kelly Automotive Group is. Give us a little profile, and then we'll jump into some of your challenges to increase sales. So take it away.
Okay, first off, I was the GM at the Nissan store. The Kelly Group is a group that's in Emmaus and also in Florida. They have several dealerships. The great thing about them, which also speaks to the system, is the dealer rater. Most of their stores are number one in the country, if not number one in the state. So it speaks again to the process that we were trying to accomplish. You know what I'm saying? We wanted to be customer friendly, which is really important. So it's an agency that Greg Kelly and his dad run, and they've got a lot of good people there doing a lot of great things.
So let's start with what keeps you and everybody else up at night in sales. How do you increase them? What were some of your challenges? Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Well, the Nissan store located there in Easton, Pennsylvania, it has the incumbent, the store that we were up against had been there for over 50 years. So they had owner base, and they had a good reputation, as well as the store in the Poconos. It was a tight market, and when we looked at the advertising we were doing, we were only bringing in so many people. And if we'd spend 20,000 or 50,000, it seemed like we'd only move that bar 30 or 40 people. So the goal was to be the number one dealer in the Lehigh Valley. So that's out of necessity, this thing was born. It started with Mr. Chris Saraceno and I decided, we've got to see this process and how it's going to develop, and we've got to make sure first and foremost that it's customer friendly. We don't want people changing locations because they don't want to be tormented every time they come in. So it was it was one of our big things that we wanted to make sure. So we needed to bring more opportunities to the sales force, in order to hit our sales goals. The thing that I really liked about this, and again, I'm so excited about this. This reminds me when I was an F&I guy back in the 70s. Everybody thought that was going to be a phase that was going to come in and out and wasn't really going to last long, and that's been such a mainstay with everybody. I think this is, if done properly, especially with the the internet department, it's kind of tough. You can't hit what you can't see, and the grosses traditionally aren't as great on the internet, and that's the exact opposite with this approach. It is our grosses were better, which was shocking to us, and then when we thought about it, the customers don't have a chance to really shop it. They get excited like we all do when we sit in a new car, and so it was. It's again, to Jim's point, it was our owner base. People would trust us, and some of the things you'll see here is having the right system. That was the big part of it, because we were, like I said, I was getting my nose bloodied and hearing how everybody, you take the traditional car guy and you put him in there, and as we'll discuss here, that's not the right approach. And again, the other thing too is we all have budgets. So I didn't want to get there and start saying, geez, Greg Kelly, I need another 20 grand to make this thing work. And that's the beauty of this program. It is for a price of a bad radio buy, you can make this thing and sell on the downside 3% to as much as 5%. As we go on here, you'll see some of the things I discovered, and hopefully it'll make your job easier and get you back in the program.
So, Terry, you realized that you wanted to be number one. You knew you had to make some changes. So the status quo wasn't working. Let's talk a little bit about what you did once you came with that realization that you needed to find some better ways. Let's talk about that.
Well, in the old days, back in the 80s and 90s, they'd say, hey, we bought 2 dozen donuts, go back there and sell some cars in service. It was a joke. And maybe you got lucky and then you did it one day and then you stopped it, like most things in the automobile business that we do. So we didn't have that process. That was we knew that there was gold in them, their hills, but we just didn't know how to do it. So we decided to take a trip to see how it was done. And I'm more of a visual person. If you give me a book, I'm not sure I'll get it as good as if I see something work. And when I visited this dealership and I saw, 4 cars being sold in 4 hours, I was just astounded that done properly, it could be something that's effective. And I think it was born out of necessity at this one particular store that we went to because of the location of the service and sales department were blocks away from each other. So so we knew there was a market. I had tried a tool, and it was an okay tool, but then again went back to the process. I had a tool that was able to do things. It wasn't perfect, and then I had to get the right tool and create the process to work that tool. And so the ones I was weren't working. It just wasn't. It was a how can I put it? It was demoralizing, because you take the sales guy, you take your best sales guy and say, all right, here's the, this is what we want you to do. And then more often than not, he heard 4 or 5 no's in a row and, boss, this doesn't work. Can I just go back on the sales floor? So it was an education. When it made me a believer. Seeing is believing, that old expression, it made me a believer that it can be done, and then that was my job as a GM, is to make other people see it through my eyes, and not to be selective, to approach 100% of the people 100% of the time, get the right tool, and then watch what happens, then measure the results.
So after this evaluation, let's talk about some of the steps that you took to set up the system. And I know from our work on this prior to today's webinar, you came up with a lot of different things that weren't just technology based, so like human factors. So we'll look forward to you talking about that.
Yeah, and the first thing was the knowledge of the customer. The tool did 2 things. The tool let us look out into the future. Most of those tools are just for that day or the next day. This allowed myself, the used car manager, to look at cars coming in ahead of time, cars that we need. The old expression, cars with histories and not mysteries, cars that, we could see the service, we could actually have time to appraise them, get them up on the lifts and look at these things. So the technology was just what happened is we tried to do this without any technology, and by the time you're done, like 6 or 7 people trying to get payoffs, trying to do all that, it's just too time consuming. You can't do it, and you become disheartened. The human factor was another eye-opening experience that, like I had alluded to earlier here. We thought it was you had to get your best salesman in front of the customers, which was entirely wrong. They're just not used to hearing the word no 5 times in a row. They this hurts. I don't want to do this anymore. Please take this cross from me. They used to tell me and kid with me. So, but then when we figured out that it became an assembly line. We just want to make it get the right person. Make sure that it's 100% of the people get offered 100% of the opportunity to understand what programs are in effect. But as you'll see later on in this screen here, it's not one thing, it's the whole group of things. What makes a good party, right? It's the music, it's the people, it's the entertainment, the whole thing. It's what you're serving that day. Everything makes it. And I think if you take 1 or 2 pieces out of this program, no different than if you take 1 or 2 plays out of a football game, you're going to have a different result. And I believe that you have to stay with the process. It's really important.
So let's talk about that. Let's take a flyby over the process. Talk about what are some of the key steps, what do people need to know, and what were some of the aha moments you had in doing this that really made a difference?
Well, the point of sales materials, that's a double-edged sword there. It's when they pull in, there's something going on. In one of Jim's earlier slides, you can see that my guys had lab coats on, and believe it or not, I'll explain why that's important. But it's when you come in, you notice there's something different. The service writers, it's really important that the service writers and the sales team buy into this program together. You need to have a meeting with everybody. You have to have the cooperation of the service advisors, because there's going to be people that are going to come in, drop the keys off, and roll. Those folks have to get the letter that's pre-printed, the day before. So much of this is the process before and during that make this program successful. And a lot of us, we want to take the easy route. We don't want to do what it takes to get the job done, and we want the letter to do the talking for us. And it's good in cases where you can't get to them. So you get that letter printed up, you get the service advisors to make sure they're handling it out. The quality control representative, it goes back again to the individual. I hate to use the word, but it's people who are used to being in the service department, folks who work for rental companies, folks who are used to other service advisors, people who are used to being in that atmosphere are real good matches for this, because they're going to approach, in worst case scenarios, 35 people a day to as many as 100 people a day in some of the bigger units. So you have to have the right amount of them. They have to have the right appearance. Everyone used to laugh at me, but to me, the lab coat that you see with the emblem of the manufacturers, you just can't have a lab coat. You have to have the one with the manufacturers on there, because it gives the appearance that you work not directly for the sales or service department, that you may work for the manufacturer. And really, it says, I am not a salesperson. That's probably the biggest thing. And no self-respecting salespeople like to wear that. And so people are at ease. The written office to purchase is nice. That's all part of they give you the tools so you can print these things very quickly, because people have 45 minutes, sometimes to get in, get out, and you want to make sure that they're not being delayed. And the trade-up process, it was great. There was the story it was kind of told to me was, you're not into getting a mortgage on your home until someone shows you that you can save yourself some money by lowering your interest rate and in the term. So the trade up, we made it really affordable with today's interest rates, with today's lease rates. We were telling people, geez, you can trade up, better fuel economy, safer vehicle, better styling. Geez, folks, this is a no-brainer. How can you not not go for the system here? And it's that excitement that we all have, that people sit there and probably one of the biggest problems we had is we planted so many seeds. If you're talking to 50 people and only selling 6 or 7 cars, you have 46 people to get back to you've already told something to. So it was a process that really straightened myself out and everybody. We understood now how to do it and what to expect.
And in looking at this, was there something in these steps here? You may have mentioned it, but if you could we could look at it again, that really gave you an aha moment, some insight that this is a winning formula. This is how we're going to do it.
Well, one of the things was we looked at the the system, and it showed us who had equity and who didn't have equity, and right away you want to go to the guy that had $3,000 worth of equity. Well, that was a mistake. Those people are pretty smart. It's more the other version, the person that was $3,000 flipped. And for those car guys that aren't car guys, people who owed more on their car than what it's worth, those people were just used to going into another vehicle. They wanted someone to show them how. They wanted someone to show how they could reduce their payment. We also looked at those people that maybe they were, this is why it's important to approach everybody. Maybe they didn't want to trade their car in because they just bought it, but they had a good feeling about the way they were treated, and they want to buy their son or their wife a vehicle. And that was the thing we found. We found that people saying, I'm going to need a car for my son. What do you got on the used car lot? Because they're really a captive audience. If they're going to wait for their car, especially Saturday was probably our best day, because everybody's more relaxed and they have some time to spend. Even if their car is done, you've got them interested in the styling and the fuel economy and the safety. So, we with the interest rate story, especially when you use the tool, when you look and you see people are currently paying 8.9, and you could show them 3.9. Who doesn't want to save 5%?
Yeah.
So that was our big thing, the head shakers, as we said. We can't believe it.
Wow. So it's almost counterintuitive on the equity, non-equity. So let's kind of move into the next portion, because we've got some questions coming in. Terry, talk about really the bottom line. What were the business outcomes and results? How did they match your expectations of when you went into this?
Well, again, we wanted to make sure that we weren't tormenting people. And it is one of the big things that you have to do is the service advisors have to be compensated on the sales. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. It can be a gift card. But because a lot of times this is maybe the 5th time or 6th time in 2 years that they've met this service advisor, and they kind of trust this person. So that he has to tee it up. And here's what I'm saying about that. This is important. He has to say, hey, there's going to be someone that's going to sit with you in a couple minutes to go over all your information to make sure we have it all. So expect that person to bother you when you not bother you, but to sit with you and and gather that information. So now they kind of expect that, kind of like in the doctor's office. They take all the information before you see the doctor. So that was real important because they expected at that point. Some people used to come up and say, I'm almost done. Is there someone going to come to me? Because the service writers did such a good job at the Kelly organization. So the conversation, listen to what the customers are saying. Some people just sat there and said, I hate this car. It's the 5th time I'm in for the same problem. How difficult is it to close that? Other people, as Jim had alluded to earlier too, they had a lease car they had bought from another dealer, and for whatever reason they fell in love with that dealer, or they saved themselves $200 by driving to Maryland, to pick up something, and here they sit with 90 days left before they can go into another vehicle. So when we went over those histories, we found all that stuff out. The people just told us because, again, you're not talking to a salesperson. You're talking to somebody in a lab coat that looks like he's there to collect information. As I say, plant that seed. Some people with warranties running out, some people with extended warranties running out. You could see service histories that they were good customers. And again, I hate to keep using the same expression, but cars with good histories and car people that just, had their, they're down to one car. They want to be a one-car family. They don't need 2 cars. So there were people that we bought some of the nicest cars out of our service department and had plenty of time to look at it. We didn't have any auction fees. We didn't have any transportation fees. I mean, it is absolutely a gold mine for that type of thing.
Terrific.
And if I could just tell you, just these numbers get staggering real quick here. The 3% sold rate, that, as I alluded to earlier here, that's the low. I've seen cases on Saturdays where we have swelled to 5 and 6%. Worst case scenario, if you're doing 35 ROs, which is certainly a nice small dealership, you should be selling 1 car a day, 6 a week, 24 a month, 24, 25 at $2,100, a piece. That's $52,000 in gross. Please raise your hand. Who doesn't want that? Now, again, you may have failed at this, but maybe some of the things were, the tool, the process may help you with that and also get that number up.
Well, let's take a moment and share just a couple of the key lessons learned. I think this is really important. You've mentioned some of these, but go ahead and talk about this.
All right. Well, understand peak hours. It is in the morning. I mean, you have to get the individual that wants to get up early. He's got a smile on his face because at 7:30 to 9:30, you either have waiters or drop-offs, and you want that. So you have to understand those peak hours because I don't want to bring people in just to bring them in. And that's the nice thing with the tool. They can tell you how many people you're going to have in. Do you need 1 guy? Do you need 2 guys? Do you need 3 guys to be there to greet these people in the morning? Because if there's only 1 or 2 appointments, you can anticipate another 1 or 2 walk-ins. You'll be able to handle that with 1 person without a problem. Again, 100% of the people. I can't say that enough. You cannot pick and choose. Whether the guy bought a car 6 months ago, he may be thinking about turning over his wife's car. He may be thinking about getting a car for his daughter. But all you're doing, remember, and that's why we paid, as well, I'll address here a little bit further here, we paid a $250 a week at our store to make sure that 100% of the people were done because we wanted that owner base. We wanted the current emails and the current cell phone numbers and the current addresses so that when we do those service program or sales mailers that we were going to the people that we were getting. So, the tool gave us, this is the real big thing. It gave us a quick way to calculate payoffs. It gave us a quick way to calculate ACVs, actual cash values on cars. Those are the things that you can do it, but not with the speed and accuracy of the tools that we used. So having the right people, having them dress right. Again, this last one, location. I can't tell you how many dealers that I've talked to that have put this office in the middle or close to the showroom. It cannot be. It's people, you can almost see their body language change when you bring them into a showroom. They know, maybe the lab coat starts to wear off at that point, but I've heard them say, listen, I'm not interested in buying a car. No, we're just going to check stuff. At the Nissan store, we were blessed the way that the Kellys laid it out. There was a glass office right between service and sales. You could see, literally you could see the TV in the service lounge. So it kept them there. They knew they weren't being put into a sales atmosphere. And I can't tell you how important that is, that it's a an office that doesn't look like you're in a sales office. It looks like you're going to give the vitals to the information you have. Again, rolling up your sleeves here, as I've indicated, the rewards. You've got to tell this. There's going to be people that will say no to you. You might get 20 no's in a row, and it might be one whole day of no's. But the next day, we actually had people that we planted the seeds that would come back a week later and say, hey, this is my husband. We're here to look at that car, and we'd look at him like, who are you? Because they were actually in the service department, and the sales managers really never TO'd the deal. And then, oh, yeah, that's right. You're the folks we spoke to. We really didn't even know who they were because we took it as one of the many people that we had spoke to earlier, and we planted that seed, and that's one of your big obstacles. How do you keep track of that? I recommend you give these people that have some light to your BDC and call these people or email them. It was those are the big things: location, the dress, the knowing that you're not going to sell everybody, but you could sell 3 in a row. And there are 2 schools of thought. Do you stay with the sales person that started this, or do you turn it over to a salesperson? Excuse me, I shouldn't say salesperson. Do you turn it over to the service turn person and let him finish it, which is what I like. That people trust you already, that you know more about them. That's the approach I like. Some places that are a little bit bigger will turn that over to a salesperson. My secret was I like to keep the same people with them. But so on a Saturday, you need 3 people to handle the 50 or 60 people you're coming in.
Fantastic. Terry, that was great. We're going to have you back with Jim and Randy in just a moment. And folks, one last request. We've gone over quite a bit of information, and now we'd like you to vote in our final poll, and I'm launching it right now. And what we want to know is, based on the strategies that you've heard today, which of these would increase your new car sales from the service drive? So select all that apply. Is it rethinking current processes and procedures? Is it aligning of sales and service to engage prospects to buy now? Is it using technology and to automate and update customer data, or implementing a training and support program? Which of these do you think would help you increase new car sales from the service drive? And I'm going to let this come up, and then when I call back Jim and Terry and Randy, we'll take a look at this and see what the comments are. In fact, we don't have to be so formal. Jim, let me call you back to the virtual podium, and Randy, welcome, and Terry, stay there, and let's let these votes come in, and we'll share them, and then I'm going to give you some information on how you can get started. Looks like 41% rethinking current processes and procedures would help. 29% aligning of sales and service to engage prospects to buy now. 9% using technology to automate and update customer data. And then 22% for implementing a training and support program. So, Jim, you want to comment on this, and then we'll get something from Terry?
Well, first of all, Mike, I'm a process guy. I've always said, average people, great processes, incredible results, and most of the car business is coming around to that. You've got to have a track to run on no matter what you're doing. If it's sales, if it's service, it doesn't matter. I'm surprised that training and support came as low as it did on this survey. But this is probably a lot of people in the audience. This is brand new to them in that they haven't rethought service sales in a long time. I'm excited to see it, and I've seen service turn in action. I've talked to the dealers that are using it, not just Terry, but I've talked to quite a few of them. Everybody is just amazed, like somebody sprinkled pixie dust on them. They can sell flowers in airports. Just everybody that is using service turn is more than a true believer.
Yeah, I agree with Jim. The rethinking, we're such traditionalists in this business that you really almost have to get away from that. You have to think that these aren't people that are thinking buying a car. It's the farmer. We have to plant the seed, and it's really good to know, again, back to the technology, how they bought their last car. I agree that the process, I know, I tried it because I've been in the business a million years, and I know I could do this. I was dead wrong. You have to really rethink this. So I'm not surprised with the 41%.
Randy, I'd like to bring you up to the virtual podium and have you say hello. Can you hear us okay?
I can. Thank you for attending today. We really appreciate everybody showing up.
If you're interested, those of you attending today, MPI is offering a free analysis of your service drive sales opportunity. So the toll-free number is on your screen. We're going to send it out in the chat. It's 855-812-9731, and you can speak to one of their service drive selling experts. Randy, anything you want to say on this before we start with the questions?
I think it's interesting if you look at this last poll where 41% said they want to rethink the current processes and procedures, and then you compare that to the first poll where over 80% of the attendees today have tried selling new cars through service. I think it goes back to what Terry said. A lot of people have tried it, and it hasn't been as successful as they would have liked. And so we're really excited to work with these people to help them to make that successful.
Terrific. Well, let's start with the questions. We're right on track. First question here is, and this is for you, Terry. How do you team up with sales to segue seamlessly from service to sales?
Yeah, it's there has to be compensation on both parts. You know what I'm saying? The service writers, because they're going to perform two things. They're going to make sure they know that there'll be someone talking to them, okay? And they also have to know that, you know, a lot of these customers who have been coming back for 2 or 3 years, you know, because that's the real good area. That's that 3-year-old, 4-year-old car, right? That 5-year loan. They trust their service advisor. He's going to tell them, someone's going to talk to them. They're going to sit down, and they'll be compensated if it's sold because they're concerned about it. In some cases, we used to have service writers call and say, hey, you know, are you still thinking about that new car? So that process going in and making sure it's done in a friendly, professional way. We're not looking to hear yes in the first 5 minutes. See, and that's the other thing. Everybody thinks that, you know, I gave him my best sales approach. He should say yes now. They may not say yes for 3 or 4 days, but there are some people that, hey, I never thought about it. You're right. It does make sense, you know, to reduce my interest rate.
Well, actually, that's a perfect answer and a segue. Speaking of segues, Karen has a question, and Terry, let me toss this to you first, and we'll let Jim jump in. What are some of the transition statements that are used to engage the customers in buying a new car?
Well, and this is really important. You have to look at the history. You can't show up and turn on the computer. You have to look at it the day before, okay? Because each thing is going to be different, right? If it's a lease customer, it's a different situation, a different script. If it's a person with their warranty running out, if it's a person with service problems, you know, meaning mechanical problems on a car, you would be surprised how people they sit there and say, no, I should just get rid of it. And you say, well, geez, you know, you have an '08. I know it's a great selling vehicle. Have you seen the 2013 Altima? You know, and they'd say, no, you haven't. Well, here's one right here. And when you it's that new car smell. That does most of the work for you. So, you know, you have to identify who you're talking to and go in there with no perceived ideas like I did. I thought, oh, this guy's got $5,000 of equity. He should buy. He never bought as much as the guy who was $3,000 flipped. You know what I'm saying? That guy bought more often than the guy who had equity.
Thank you. Jim,
Yeah.
here's a question for you. What are some best practices?
Let me play with that last one.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. Now, one thing about service terms I don't think has really been emphasized. We're offering to buy the consumer's car as often as not for cash. So it's not approached as a sale. Everybody wants to know how much their car's worth. And when you offer to buy it, I've been a prospecting fool for 37 years, and I teach prospecting, and offering to buy a consumer's car always takes their defenses down. So you're not coming in with the idea that they're going to trade it in. You're coming in with the idea of, would you sell it to me? Of course, if they sell it to you, they're going to buy something else. Now, what other questions do you have?
Well, the question would be, what are some best practices when addressing the service customer about buying a new car? What are some of the best practices you would like to throw out and share?
Well, first of all, the best practice is that it doesn't appear to be a salesperson. You know,
Right.
and the type of people that we're hiring, that they're hiring, the service turn. And like I say, I've talked to so many people in the service turn program the last couple of weeks as we prepared for this webinar. That they could go to South America and have a cult. They believe in it. I mean, these people are you know they are true service turn believers, and the idea that the whole setup is psychologically sound, and it doesn't threaten or intimidate the consumer. Young people, lab coats, factory insignia, everything about it is carefully structured to the decimal point to give you a chance of success.
Terrific. Thank you. Terry, question.
Yes.
When you were speaking before, you mentioned a letter in the Edge service term process. Can you tell the audience what the letter says and how it's
Yeah,
implemented?
it's we have a need. Your car's, you know, the on our hot list that we have a need for your vehicle, inventory right now, and it's a true statement. Inventory is really short to come by. I did some math the other day and said, geez, if you buy, you know, 5 cars a month from your service department, that's 60. Who wouldn't like 60 cars that you knew came from your service department, serviced there, you knew the owners, you could tell the person that, you know, about the vehicle, you know, one owner, local trade, we did it. So, you know, it's I believe so much in this, and I'm not one of these guys that gets excited about. It's just such an opening for us. I couldn't believe for 30 years I'd walk by the service department and wouldn't say anything to all those people. I don't know how many thousands of cars we could have sold over that time period if we just had this process.
Thank you. Randy, question for you. Does the service turn process work in selling used cars too?
Yeah, definitely. The service turn process allows you to access both the dealership new and used car inventory. So when that quality control or quality assurance representative is having the discussion with the service customer, you have the opportunity to select the type of car that they might be interested in, both new and used, because we do provide the entire inventory view in the program.
Thanks, Randy. Well, we're just about there, and Jim, any final comments you'd like to add?
No, I'm a believer myself. I could probably go to South America with the rest of the service turn cult. I believe in it.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank everybody in the audience for your time and attention and your interest. We're thrilled that so many of you not only registered but attended, and we really do hope that you got a lot of value out of today. Again, special thanks to Jim Ziegler and Terry Longmore, and of course, our sponsor and host, Randy Kobat of MPI. And of course, I want to thank our logistics producers and help from MPI, Dina Kelly and Patty Van Hooser and Tamara Williams for all their behind-the-scenes collaboration and support. And most importantly, thanks again for joining us. And this is your moderator, Mike Agron, saying have a great rest of the week. Bye for now.